For more analysis, we turn to Anthony Salvia. He is a former U.S. State Department official and Russian affairs specialist and a friend of Arise News. So good to see you, Anthony. First of all, I think I just want to ask if you could sort of take us into the mind of Vladimir Putin, if you will. And he denies vigorously, so does Moscow, that the Russian fighters are not actively a part of this conflict. Why is he so vigorous in this denial in the face of this growing mountain of evidence?
Well, you know, I mean, I would love to see the actual evidence. I mean, the actual evidence before I jump to the conclusion that this is an invasion. I mean, I can well see that because a significant section of the border between Russia and Ukraine is open, I can well see that Russians are joining the fight. Russians from Russia proper, from the Russian Federation, are crossing the border and joining the fight. It's not the same thing as a Russian army invasion as a matter of policy. Moscow giving the order, okay, invade. You know, that could be happening. Certainly, I could see materiel being sent. You know, we arm rebels in many, many countries around the world. We do it as a matter of course. I think certainly from his point of view, his mentality is that, you know, their people are in trouble. They are under duress. They see the Ukrainian army coming at them with genocidal intent, and coming at the ethnic Russian-speaking population of Donetsk and Lugansk. And his mentality is, well, you fight back. Fight back to what purpose? Victory? To push on to Kiev and overthrow the government? I don't think so. And indeed, to annex this region of eastern Ukraine, I don't think that either. I think what he has always said, I think this continues to be what he wants, is a negotiated settlement. And I think that he realizes that you know, so far Kiev has not shown the slightest evidence in engaging in serious negotiations. The conditions they've set for negotiations amount to preconditions. In other words, to a predetermined outcome, where where Poroshenko, the president in Kiev, who we support, is basically saying to these people in the east, you've got two options: either leave the region into refugee status, go into Russia if that's what you really want to do, join Russia, go to Russia, or stay but drop your weapons, and then we'll talk. Now, if you stay and drop your weapons, you know, how are you going to negotiate? Obviously, Kiev is in a position to dictate terms. That's not a negotiation.
Right.
So what Putin is saying is the only way these people in Kiev are ever going to get the message that you got to talk is if we do these things. And meanwhile, you know, we're not going to just sit around and see them shell apartment buildings as the Ukrainian side has been doing. They've been shelling infrastructure and indeed apartment buildings and schools and things like that in these cities. And the Russians are saying, you know, we have to respond to that. And the Russian people are demanding, but you know, Putin is in a political dilemma in Russia because the Russian people don't want to see a Russian invasion. On the other one, they don't want to see the Russian population of East Ukraine decimated.
Indeed, indeed. I want to change the subject for just a little bit because time is of the essence here. The Ukrainian government has asked for full-fledged membership into NATO. How likely do you think that is, and how strongly do you think Putin would fight against that?
Oh, I think he would be dead set opposed. He's made that clear. Part of the negotiated settlement he wants is written into the Ukrainian constitution that Ukraine will be non-aligned. That means not part of NATO. I think, though, he almost doesn't have to do anything about that too much because really the Germans, I think, will oppose it completely inside NATO. When we tried to get Ukraine into NATO before, I guess it was in 2009 at the NATO summit in Strasbourg in France, Germany and France joined forces and said, no dice, no Ukraine into NATO. We will not support it. I think now, in view of all that's gone on since, I think that even the Germans, especially the Germans, are even less likely to want Ukraine in. You know, it's a war zone. Ukraine normally, or rather NATO normally does not offer membership to countries that are in a situation of complete instability. And here you have a situation where they're at loggerheads with a country that's a major nuclear power. So this violates normally the normal NATO standards for membership.
Let me just ask you this. I'm jumping around just a little bit. We just have about a minute left. You know, Vladimir Putin, I believe he was addressing students, said that Kiev's drive for regional control in a couple of cities, I think Ilyasк, if I'm saying it right, is one of those. He said it was tantamount to the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union in World War II. I find this ironic a bit. Is it a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black here?
Well, I guess he's, you know, it's complicated. It's a little bit he's basically saying that, you know, I think he compared it specifically to the German assault against Leningrad, where the Germans were encircling the city and it's, you know, bombarding essentially a civilian center. And he's saying that this is, in effect, what's happening to these cities in East Ukraine, where the Ukrainians are moving in and sending military force against essentially civilian places. these aren't really military targets because the Ukrainian pro-Russian forces in Ukraine aren't sitting there in military formations. They're like they're militia and they're hidden. And so the Ukrainians are shelling these cities, and we've seen shots of apartment buildings devastated, of schools devastated by Ukraine. So this is what I think Putin is getting at.
I tell you what, there's so much to talk about, and it is so complicated, as you say. But we'll stop the conversation for now. We'll pick this up again some other time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Still to come on Arise America, in Ferguson, Missouri, one officer is fired and one resigns. What's next in the fallout of the Michael Brown shooting? And why Westerners go to Syria to fight for the Islamic State? And the NFL taking a stand on domestic violence.